Welcome, everyone, to the Real Estate Rehab Blueprint. I'm your host, Jake, and I am super excited to be here with you all today.
And I'm Olivia, your other host. And honestly, I'm just as thrilled as Jake is to dive into, well, what we love to talk about, right? Real estate.
Absolutely, Olivia. We're here to peel back the layers on something a lot of people find fascinating and often, a bit daunting, the world of real estate rehab and flipping.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about, buying a house, slapping on some paint, and then boom, you're rich. There's so much more to it. There's a whole blueprint, if you will, to truly making a profit and, doing it right.
Right, and that's what we're going to explore today. We're going to really dig deep into what it takes to transform what might look like a forgotten property into a stunning, profitable home. We'll talk about everything from, how to even find these deals, to getting them funded, to the nitty-gritty of the actual renovation process, and then, of course, the all-important sale.
Yeah, and we're also going to cover, some of the common pitfalls people, stumble into, because trust me, there are quite a few. But we'll also share some of our best tips and tricks to, help you avoid those headaches. So whether you're a seasoned investor or just, curious about dipping your toes into the flipping game, you're in the right place.
Definitely. Think of this as your essential guide, your very own blueprint to navigating the often tricky but super rewarding world of real estate rehab. So let's get into it, shall we?
So, Jake, we just talked about, what we're going to cover. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the blueprint itself, I think it's really important to address the elephant in the room for a lot of people, which is, what is real estate rehab exactly? And why even bother flipping?
Yeah, that's a super valid point, Olivia. I mean, for some, it's just a buzzword, right? Flipping houses. But at its core, real estate rehab or house flipping, it's basically buying a property, usually one that's, undervalued or distressed, doing some significant renovations to it, and then selling it for a profit, hopefully quickly. It's not just, like you said earlier, throwing a coat of paint on it. It's often structural, cosmetic, sometimes both. It's about really transforming the space.
Right. It's that transformation piece that I think is so appealing to so many of us, myself included. It's not just a financial transaction. It feels different. But I mean, let's be real. The number one driver for most people, Jake, is often the profit potential, isn't it? You hear stories of people making, 6 figures on a single flip.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the profit potential is huge for sure. When done right, it can be incredibly lucrative. You're essentially, creating value where it didn't exist, or at least wasn't recognized. You take an eyesore, a neglected property, and you turn it into something desirable, something functional, something beautiful. And naturally, that increased value translates into, a higher selling price and a healthy profit margin for the flipper. It's a very tangible way to, build wealth relatively quickly if you're smart about it.
Yeah, and I think that's where the relatively quickly part is key, because it can definitely accelerate your financial goals faster than, say, a long-term rental strategy for some people. It's more active, it requires more hands-on work, but the payoff can be significantly faster.
Exactly. It's active income versus passive usually. But beyond just the pure financial gain, which is, obviously a massive draw, there's also that incredible satisfaction, right? Olivia, you mentioned that feeling of transformation.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's honestly what keeps me coming back. It's you walk into a house and it's almost sad, It's neglected, maybe it's got outdated finishes or even structural issues. And then you pour your energy, your vision, your hard work into it, and you see it evolve. And then you walk away and it's wow, I did that. I took something that was, on its last legs and I brought it back to life. That feeling is, honestly, it's pretty amazing.
It really is. It's like
like solving a puzzle, but with, hammers and paintbrushes, and you're seeing the results of your labor in a very concrete way. It's not just numbers on a screen. It's a physical space that's been improved. And that sense of accomplishment, I think, is a huge, huge motivator for a lot of people in this business. It's more than just the money. It's the creative outlet, too, if you think about it.
Absolutely. And then, going even a step further beyond just your personal satisfaction or, your personal profit, there's also a significant community aspect to it, which I think often gets overlooked. Like when you're rehabbing a property, especially in an older neighborhood, you're not just helping yourself, you're actually contributing to neighborhood revitalization.
100%. That's a point I always love to hammer home. When you take a rundown property, right, an eyesore that might be bringing down property values for the whole block, and you turn it into a beautiful, updated home, you're doing a huge service to the entire community. It raises the aesthetic appeal. It can boost property values for the surrounding homes, and it often, attracts new residents to an area, which can lead to more businesses, more services. It's a ripple effect, really.
Yeah, like I've seen it firsthand where one well-done rehab can literally inspire other homeowners on the street to start, sprucing up their own properties. It creates this positive momentum. It's almost like, one person plants a beautiful garden and then suddenly everyone else on the street starts planting flowers too. It just, it elevates the whole area. And cities and communities, they actually really appreciate that because it helps them improve their tax base and overall quality of life.
It's true. We've had conversations with city officials who are always thrilled to see properties that were once, problematic or vacant, transformed and occupied again. It's a win-win, truly. So yeah, while the allure of profit is undeniable and it's a primary driver for many, don't underestimate the satisfaction of that tangible transformation and the positive impact you can have on a community. It really adds another layer of meaning to the work.
Definitely. So when we talk about why flip, it's not just about the numbers, although those are important. It's about the entire process, the challenge, the creativity, and the impact. And that's why so many people, including us, are just so drawn to it.
All right, so we've covered the why, the allure, the profit, the transformation, the community impact, all fantastic reasons to get into real estate rehab. But now I think it's time to dig into the how, right? Because wishing for a great flip isn't going to make it happen. You need a solid blueprint. And the first absolute crucial step, phase one, really, is finding and funding that ideal deal.
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. You can't rehab what you don't own, right? So finding the right property, that's like half the battle, maybe more. It's not just about, scrolling through Zillow and hoping for the best. There's a real strategy to it.
For sure. A lot of people think, oh, I'll just find something on the MLS, put an offer in. And yeah, sometimes you can find deals there, especially if you're quick and, you know your market. But for really promising rehab properties, those diamonds in the rough, you often have to look a bit deeper.
Right. Like the MLS is good for seeing what's out there, what's not a good deal. But the real opportunities, I think, often come from what we call off-market sources, things that aren't publicly listed yet.
Exactly. Think about it. Wholesalers, for instance, are constantly looking for distressed properties, and then, they put them on their contract and assign that contract to an investor like us. That can be a great source. Or auctions, like foreclosure auctions, tax details, those can be gold mines, but they also come with their own set of risks, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Auctions are not for the faint of heart or for newbies, let's be honest. You really need to know your stuff there. But other avenues like direct mail campaigns to absentee owners, or even just driving for dollars. How many times have we just driven through a neighborhood and spotted a house that just screams neglected but potential?
So many times. It's almost like a superpower you develop, isn't it? You start seeing properties differently. And direct mail, or even just talking to people, real estate agents, contractors, probate attorneys, even divorce attorneys, building that network can uncover deals that nobody else even knows about yet. That's where you find the least competition.
And it's those less competitive deals where you can really negotiate a better price. Because let's be honest, the whole point of a good rehab deal is buying it right. You make your money when you buy, not just when you sell.
That's the golden rule, Olivia. Buy right. And part of buying right, actually a huge part, is the market analysis. You can find the ugliest house in the best neighborhood, but if you don't know what it's going to be worth after you fix it up, you're just guessing.
Exactly. This is where you calculate your ARV, your after repaired value. You need to know, okay, if I put X amount of money into this, what will it sell for in this specific market? And that means looking at comparables or comps.
Yeah, comps are your best friends. You need to look at properties that are, similar in size, similar number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and have recently sold in the immediate vicinity, ideally within the last 6 months, sometimes even less. And they need to be in similar condition to what your house will be after the rehab. You're trying to figure out what buyers are paying for move-in ready homes in that area.
Not just what you hope it will sell for. This is where you have to be really, really objective. And sometimes, your emotions can get in the way. You really like a house, but the numbers just don't make sense. You have to walk away. The market tells you what it's worth.
Exactly. And it's not just the house itself. You have to analyze the neighborhood too. Is it an appreciating area? What are the local schools like? Are there new developments, new businesses coming in? What's the job market doing? All of those macro and micro factors influence the ultimate value and how quickly your property will sell once it's done.
Right. And then once you've found that promising property and you've done your due diligence on the market, you're like, okay, this looks like a good deal. Then comes the other big elephant in the room for a lot of people, funding. How do you actually pay for this?
Oh, the money part. Yeah, that's where a lot of potential flippers, I think, hit a wall. They might find a great deal, but then realize they don't have the capital. But the good news is there are actually several avenues for financing rehab projects beyond, just having a huge pile of cash sitting around.
Definitely. I mean, cash is king, right? If you've got it, that's usually the easiest and fastest way to go. But most people don't just have like hundreds of thousands of dollars for their first flip.
No, not at all. So the most common route for, say, properties that are in really rough shape and banks won't touch them is often hard money lenders.
Yeah, hard money. It sounds a bit intimidating, but it's really just a short-term loan. They're usually lending on the value of the property itself and less on your credit score.
Exactly. They're quick. They can close in days sometimes, which is great when you've got a hot deal. The downside, of course, is that they come with higher interest rates and origination fees compared to traditional banks. But for a short-term, say 6-month to a year loan where you're flipping quickly, that higher cost can be offset by the speed and flexibility.
And then you've got private money lenders, which are, a little different from hard money. This is often where you're borrowing from like an individual or a group of individuals maybe friends or family or people you network with who want to earn a return on their capital.
I love private money. It's often the most flexible because you're dealing directly with a person, not an institution with, 100 layers of bureaucracy. You can negotiate terms that work for both of you. And it's great for building long-term relationships for future projects.
Yeah, and for new flippers, sometimes that's a best entry point, especially if you have like a strong personal network. You can present your deal, show them the numbers, and they might fund it. And then, of course, there are some more conventional options, although they can be a bit trickier for true distressed properties.
Right. Like traditional bank loans are usually for properties that are in pretty good shape already, not necessarily the fixer-uppers we're looking for. But there are specific loan products out there like FHA 203K loans, which are fantastic for owner-occupants who want to buy a fixer-upper and include the renovation costs in the mortgage. But that's for living in it, not typically for flipping.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a true flip loan, but it's good for people who want to live in their rehab. But for investors, you're usually looking at hard money, private money, or, lines of credit if you have them, or partnerships.
Partnerships are huge, actually. If you've got a great deal but no money, find someone with money but no time, or vice versa. You can leverage each other's strengths. It's a fantastic way to get started if you lack one piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. So it's not just about one way to do it. It's about knowing your options and figuring out what makes the most sense for your specific deal and your personal financial situation.
But the key takeaway for phase 1, really, is that finding the deal requires proactive searching, and then funding it requires understanding these different capital sources. You can't just stumble into a great flip, can you?
No, you really can't. It's methodical, it's strategic, and it definitely takes effort. But that effort up front and finding the right property and securing the right financing is it's literally the foundation for everything that comes next. If you get this wrong, everything else is just going to be an uphill battle.
Okay, so we found the deal, right? We've got the money locked down for it. That's, as you said, the foundation. But now, this is where the magic, or sometimes the absolute chaos, begins. We're talking about Blueprint Phase 2, renovation realities. This is the hands-on part from demo to design.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road. And I think a lot of people, they get excited about the idea of tearing down walls and picking out pretty finishes. But before you even think about swinging that sledgehammer, you need a really, really solid scope of work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't just walk in and say, let's gut the kitchen. You need to know exactly what you're gutting, what you're replacing it with, what kind of finishes, what the layout will be. It's almost like, building a house on paper first.
Exactly. A detailed scope of work is your Bible for the entire renovation. It should list every single thing that needs to be done, from roof repairs to replacing outlets, painting, landscaping, everything. And it should also specify the quality of materials, the specific fixtures, even down to the paint color if you're that far along.
And it's not just for you. This document is crucial for getting accurate bids from contractors. Because if you just tell 3 different contractors, hey, I need a kitchen renovation, you're going to get 3 wildly different prices because they're all imagining different levels of work.
Precisely. You want them bidding apples to apples, right? So having that detailed scope of work means everyone's on the same page about exactly what's expected. And that brings us actually to the next huge point in this phase: hiring and managing those contractors.
Oh man, this is like a make or break part of the flip, isn't it? A good contractor can save you so much headache and money, and a bad one, well, they can sink your project faster than you can say change order.
So true. And I think the biggest mistake people make is just going with the cheapest bid, or maybe even going with the first person they talk to. You really, really need to vet these people.
Yeah, vetting is key. Always ask for references and actually call them. Ask to see their past work. Go visit a project they've done if you can. Make sure they're licensed and insured. Check online reviews, but, take them with a grain of salt. It's about due diligence.
And don't be afraid to get multiple bids, at least 3, I'd say, for any significant part of the job. And when you're comparing bids, don't just look at the bottom line. Look at what they include. Sometimes a higher bid includes things that a lower bid will nickel and dime you for later.
And once you've picked your dream team, the management aspect kicks in. This isn't just handing them the keys and walking away. You need to be involved. You need to communicate regularly.
Constant communication, weekly check-ins at a minimum. Be clear about expectations. Ask questions. And here's a big one. Establish a clear payment schedule linked to milestones. Don't pay everything up front, ever. Pay when specific stages of the work are completed to your satisfaction.
Yeah, that's so important. It keeps them accountable and it protects you. And speaking of accountability, you need to be realistic about timelines. Contractors often, have multiple projects. Things come up, weather happens, supplies get delayed.
Oh, the supply chain issues post-COVID have been a nightmare for that, haven't they? Lead times on windows, cabinets, even certain types of flooring. It can just blow your schedule right out of the water if you're not planning ahead.
Right. So you need to factor in some buffer time and also be prepared for those unexpected issues. Like you open up a wall and suddenly you've got an ancient plumbing problem or some electrical wiring that's not up to code. Those are the fun surprises.
Always budget for the unexpected. I mean, we always factor in a 10% contingency fund at a minimum, right? Because something will come up. It's almost guaranteed.
Totally. And then as you're navigating all of this construction chaos, you're also making design choices. And this is another area where people can
go a little off the rails, I think, because they design for themselves, not for the market.
Oh, absolutely. This is not your forever home, folks. This is a house you're going to sell for profit. So your design choices need to appeal to the broadest possible buyer pool in that specific neighborhood. It's about mass appeal, not personal taste.
Exactly. Think neutral. Think light and bright. Gray, white, grayish. These are like the safe bets that appeal to almost everyone. You don't want to put in, a very specific, quirky tile pattern that only you might love.
No, you want people to walk in and easily imagine their own furniture, their own life in that space. It should feel fresh, modern, and clean, but also like a blank canvas they can personalize. And this includes kitchen cabinets, countertops, flooring, bathroom fixtures. You want timeless, durable, and appealing.
And it's also about making smart choices with your budget. Like, you don't need to put in the absolute highest end everything. You need to know where to splurge a little and where to save. For instance, kitchens and bathrooms are where you generally see the biggest return on investment. People love a beautiful, updated kitchen and bath.
Yeah, those are the wow factors, right? Those are the rooms that sell houses. So you might put in good quality quartz countertops, but maybe you go with a slightly less expensive but still attractive luxury vinyl plank flooring throughout the rest of the house instead of, super high-end hardwood everywhere. It's about strategic investment.
Right. Or like upgrading the fixtures in the bathroom, the faucets, the shower head can make a huge impact without replacing the entire tub. It's about perceived value.
Perceived value, exactly. And you also have to factor in the comps again. What are similar homes in the area selling for? And what level of finishes do they have? You don't want to over-improve for the neighborhood, and you definitely don't want to under-improve. You need to meet or slightly exceed the neighborhood standard.
Yep, don't build a mansion in a modest neighborhood, and don't try to sell a fixer-upper in a luxury area. It's about alignment. And then finally, navigating those common challenges during construction. We touched on the budget overruns, the delays, the unexpected repairs.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, but when. And the key is how you react to them. You need to be decisive. You need to keep a cool head. Don't panic when you hit a snag, and communicate openly with your contractor about any issues.
Communication is paramount. And also being prepared to make quick decisions. If a specific tile you wanted is back-ordered for 3 months, you can't just halt the entire project. You need to find an alternative quickly, one that still fits your design vision and budget.
Flexibility is also key. And remember that detailed scope of work? It actually helps when things go sideways because you have a clear baseline. You know what was supposed to happen, and you can assess the impact of changes more effectively. It's about keeping things on track, even when the track gets a little bunky.
Exactly. So while phase 1 is about finding and funding the deal, phase 2 is really about executing that vision. It's where the value is actually created through the physical transformation of the property. And it really requires meticulous planning, strong project management, and, a bit of a creative eye for design that appeals to the masses.
And a whole lot of patience and a good sense of humor, too, sometimes, because things will go wrong, but that's part of the game. And when it all comes together, when you see that transformation, it's incredibly rewarding. But once it's all done, you can't just sit back and admire your handiwork, can you? Because the next crucial step is actually getting that property sold and maximizing your profit.
No, you absolutely cannot. Because all that hard work you just put in, all that strategic investment, all that patience, it means nothing if you can't showcase it properly and actually get it sold. So this is Blueprint Phase 3, marketing and maximizing profit on sale. This is, the finish line, but it's a really critical one.
Yeah, I mean, you can have the most beautiful rehab in the world, but if nobody knows about it or if it doesn't present well, it's just going to sit there. And that's where staging comes in, right? It's often overlooked, but it is so, so important.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's one of the biggest bang for your buck things you can do. Staging is basically, presenting the home in its absolute best light, making it feel warm, inviting, and most importantly, helping potential buyers envision themselves living there.
It's almost like a psychological trick, isn't it? Because people, they buy on emotion, even when they're making a big financial decision. And staging helps them connect emotionally with the space. It helps them see the lifestyle, not just the four walls and a roof.
Yeah, like an empty house just feels cavernous sometimes and cold. It's hard for people to gauge the size of a room or how furniture might fit. But when you put in, a sofa, a coffee table, some artwork, suddenly it feels like home, and it helps define the space.
And we're not talking about fully furnishing it with all your personal stuff. That's a mistake. This is professional staging. And sometimes that means bringing in a professional stager. I mean, they know what's trending, they know how to arrange furniture to make rooms look bigger, and how to highlight the best features.
Definitely. And if you can't afford a full professional staging, you can still do a lot of things, like decluttering is huge, cleaning, making sure everything sparkles, a fresh coat of paint if it needs it, and then, simple touches like nice towels in the bathroom, some plants, a few carefully chosen decorative items. It just makes a world of difference.
It's about creating that aspirational feel, right? Like this is the life you could have. And once it's staged beautifully, then it's time to actually get eyes on it. And that means really solid marketing strategies.
And I think the first thing that comes to mind, and it's a non-negotiable for me, is professional photography. Please, people, do not take photos with your cell phone. It's like the biggest mistake.
Oh my gosh, Olivia, you are so right. It drives me nuts when I see these listings with blurry cell phone pictures or pictures taken at weird angles or when there's laundry on the bed. Your photos are your first impression, literally. Most people are scrolling online before they ever step foot in a house. So if the photos aren't compelling, they're just going to scroll right past it.
Exactly. Good lighting, wide-angle shots, high resolution. It showcases the work you've done. And drone shots, if it's a bigger property or has a really nice exterior. Virtual tours are also becoming more and more popular, especially after...
Yeah, virtual tours and floor plans are super helpful. They allow people to really get a sense of the flow and the layout of the house before they even visit. And of course, online listings are crucial. Listing on the MLS, Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, casting a wide net there.
And working with a good real estate agent, honestly, is paramount at this stage. Not just any agent, but an agent who understands the rehab market in that specific neighborhood. They know what buyers are looking for, what price points are realistic, and how to position your property.
Yeah, and an agent who's also good at marketing themselves, too. They should have a strong online presence, good social media, and a network of potential buyers. You want someone who's proactive, not just sitting back waiting for calls. And open houses are still a thing too. Sometimes, depending on the market, they can generate buzz.
They can, but the agent is really, your point person for all the inquiries, scheduling showings, and eventually handling offers. And that's where we get into navigating the closing process, because getting offers is great, but getting it closed is the goal.
Right. So you get an offer, or hopefully multiple offers, and it's not always about the highest price. You have to look at the terms. Are they asking for a lot of contingencies? Are they pre-approved for a loan? Are they willing to close quickly? All those factors come into play.
Yeah, like a lower cash offer with no contingencies might be way more attractive than a higher offer that's contingent on the buyer selling their current house or getting a specific type of loan. Speed and certainty often trump a slightly higher price.
Exactly. And then you get into the negotiation phase, which can be a little bit of a dance, back and forth. You want to try and hold firm on your price, especially if your rehab is really well done and the comps support it. But you also have to be realistic.
And then come the inspections. Every buyer's going to want an inspection, and that's totally fair. Be prepared for them to find things. Even if you've done, a stellar job, there's always something. It's how you handle it that matters.
Yeah, they might ask for repairs or a credit, and you have to weigh the cost of those against potentially losing the deal. This is where your original budget and that contingency fund come in handy, right? Because you might have to give a little on something minor to keep the deal alive.
And then the appraisal, which is out of your control, really. The bank sends an appraiser to determine the property's value. And if it appraises for less than the agreed upon sales price, you've got a problem. Either the buyer has to come up with the difference, or you have to lower your price.
Which is why doing your due diligence with those initial comps and not over improving for the neighborhood is so crucial throughout this whole process, even from the very beginning. Because if it doesn't appraise, your deal can fall apart.
It really can. So assuming the inspection goes well enough, the appraisal comes in, and the loan is approved, then you're heading for closing. And it's a lot of paperwork. It's attorneys or title companies, depending on your state. It's just making sure all the ducks are in a row.
And the goal throughout all of this, from staging to the final signature, is to maximize that return on investment. Every dollar you spent, every hour you put in, it all leads to this moment. You want to get the absolute best price the market will bear.
And that means not rushing things, but also not dragging your feet. It's a balance. It means being prepared for every step, anticipating challenges, and having a good team around you. The agent, maybe even a real estate attorney if things get complicated.
Ultimately, this whole selling for profit phase is where you realize the fruits of your labor. If you've done everything right in the earlier phases, finding a good deal, executing a solid renovation, and then marketing it effectively, you'll be in a great position to achieve that maximum ROI.
It's truly the culmination, isn't it? From the initial vision to seeing that sold sign and getting that check. It's incredibly satisfying when it all comes together.
Yeah, it is. And that's the dream. That's what we're all aiming for when we talk about real estate rehab and flipping. But we also have to be real with people, right? It's not always sunshine and rainbows and smooth sailing.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, we've gone through the blueprint, and it sounds so methodical, and in a perfect world, it would be. But this next section, I think, is probably one of the most important, and it's something every single rehabber, no matter how experienced, will face common pitfalls and, our pro tips for avoiding them.
Yeah, because even with the best planning, stuff happens. And I think the number one, the absolute classic pitfall, is budget overruns. You think it's going to cost X, and suddenly it's X plus 20%.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like the bane of every rehabber's existence. And it often comes from unexpected repairs. You open up a wall and suddenly you find knob and tube wiring, or old galvanized pipes that just have to go, or, mold.
Or like a hidden leak you didn't see during the initial inspection. Or maybe the foundation isn't quite as solid as you thought. These are the surprise expenses that can just eat into your profit margin like crazy.
They really can. And that leads directly to our first pro tip, which we've touched on before, but it bears repeating: your contingency fund. You absolutely need a robust contingency fund.
Yeah, I mean, we always recommend at least 10 to 15% of your total estimated renovation budget. But honestly, on older homes, or if you're doing a more extensive gut rehab, I would even push that to 20 or 25%.
I agree, especially if you're new to this, because you're going to miss things. And it's not a matter of if you'll find unexpected things, it's when. And that contingency fund is your safety net. It's not bonus money, it's money for when things go wrong.
Exactly. Another huge pitfall, I think, is underestimating the scope of work, or what we call scope creep. You go in thinking you're just going to do cosmetic updates, and then suddenly you're moving walls, adding bathrooms, doing all sorts of structural stuff.
Oh, yeah, that happens a lot, right? You see one thing and you're like, oh, well, we're doing this, we might as well do that. And it just snowballs. And suddenly your timeline's blown, your budget's blown.
It's tempting too, because you're in there, you're making progress. But that's where having that really detailed scope of work from the very beginning is so critical, and sticking to it, almost brutally sticking to it.
Yes, and that leads to another common pitfall: bad contractors. Oh my goodness, this can sink a project faster than anything else. Unreliable contractors, poor quality work, disappearing acts, taking your money and running. It's like a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, I've had a few of those early on, and it's brutal. It sets you back weeks, if not months, and can cost you thousands. So Our pro tip here is to vet your contractors meticulously.
Meticulously, absolutely. Get multiple bids, check references, not just one, but call a few of them. Ask to see their past work, verify their licenses and insurance, and get everything in writing, a detailed contract, payment schedules, timelines, everything.
And don't pay 100% up front, obviously. You want to pay in stages tied to milestones of completion that keeps them motivated and ensures they're actually doing the work. This is a lot of work at first when you're starting, but then you can use the same crews over and over again through the years.
Another big one that can cause delays and cost money is permit and inspection issues. You think you're just doing a simple reno, but then the city requires a specific permit you didn't know about, or an inspection fails and you have to redo work.
Been there, done that. It's frustrating. And the pro tip there is really to understand your local building codes and permitting process before you start. Talk to the city's planning department. Don't assume anything. Some things seem minor but require a permit. Your contractors can help you with this, of course.
Definitely. And if you're not sure, it's always better to ask and confirm than to just proceed and then get slapped with a fine or have to tear something out. That's just a waste.
Another pitfall that's maybe less about the physical house and more about the market is a sudden market shift. You buy, you rehab, and then suddenly interest rates jump or the economy takes a dip.
That's a scary one because it's largely out of your control, right? But the pro tip there is to always factor in market risk when you're doing your initial analysis. And try not to hold on to properties for too long if the market is showing signs of softening.
Yeah, you don't want to become a landlord by accident if you're planning to flip. And being too emotionally attached to the property can also be a pitfall. Like you fall in love with it, you overspend on finishes that the neighborhood doesn't support, or you refuse to budge on price because you think it's worth more.
Oh, that's a huge one, Jake. It's so easy to get emotionally invested, but this is a business transaction. And your taste might not be everyone else's. So keep it neutral, keep it broad appeal, and focus on what the market wants, not what you personally love.
Absolutely. Keep your eye on the numbers. And sometimes people try to DIY too much. They think they can save money by doing everything themselves. And then they realize they're not qualified or it takes them 5 times longer than a professional.
Yeah, know your limits. There are some things like painting, maybe light demo, you can probably do. But electrical, plumbing, structural work, hire a professional. The liability alone is not worth it, let alone the time and the potential for mistakes.
And last but not least, really poor planning or lack of communication. If you don't have a clear project plan, if you're not talking to your contractors regularly, if you're not checking in on progress, things are just going to go off the rails.
So the pro tip there is pretty obvious, right? Plan meticulously, create schedules, use project management tools, even if it's just a spreadsheet, and communicate. Communicate with your team, with your partners, with your real estate agent. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Yeah. Being proactive about potential issues and having a clear strategy for addressing them is really what separates the successful rehabbers from the ones who, lose money or get stuck with a project for years. It's all about mitigating risk.
It really is. And, even with all these tips, you're going to encounter challenges. It's just part of the game. But having this mindset, having these contingency plans, and having a good team in place will make those challenges manageable instead of catastrophic.
So, Olivia, we've really covered a lot today, haven't we? From identifying properties all the way through to maximizing profit and then, of course, navigating those common pitfalls.
We really have, Jake. I mean, we've gone through the entire real estate rehab blueprint from finding the deal to selling it and then, all the potential bumps in the road.
Yeah, I mean, we've laid out the framework for what it takes. And the goal here for all our listeners is really to take these steps, to take this framework and actually apply it to their own ventures.
Absolutely. Don't just listen, start that market analysis, start looking for those properties, even if it's just for practice or, just finding one thing to start researching this week. Just take those first steps.
Exactly. Even if it feels daunting, just pick one area, to start diving into. And speaking of starting, we just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who tuned in today.
Seriously, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We really, really appreciate it.
If you found this episode helpful or
even if you just enjoyed our banter, please make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts.
And if you wouldn't mind, a quick rating and review really helps us out, helps other aspiring rehabbers find the show. So we'd really appreciate that. It makes a big difference.
It really does. We've got so much more coming for you on Real Estate Rehab Blueprint. We'll be breaking down every detail of what you've heard. And also make sure to subscribe to get the notices when the podcasts go up. Share with other people who are interested in real estate. Ask questions. Later, we'll also be diving deeper into specific market niches like maybe commercial rehabs or even some more advanced financing strategies.
Yeah, and we'll be bringing on some really incredible guests too, successful flippers and investors who can share their war stories and their biggest wins. So, keep an eye out for those new episodes.
Absolutely. Until next time, this has been Jake.
And Olivia.
Happy flipping.
See ya.